Aloha and welcome to Talkin Trash. I'm Max Richardson. You're about to watch part 2 of our interview with Rebecca from Compost Kauaʻi. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, it's probably a good idea to check that one out first so you can get the whole context for the interview. If you want, you can find it by scanning the QR code right here. All right, enjoy the show.
The following program is a production of KISC Kauaʻi Community Media.
So you said earlier that you have a local focus. Does that mean you service only the east side, or are you servicing the entire island?
Yeah, so currently when we started with just serving the east side with our curbside service. We spoil them. We do a curbside service where weekly we drive to your house, we pick up your bucket, we swap and we leave you a clean one, and then 4 times a year we return finished compost product to our customers. We expanded a little bit to Lihui Central to offer a drop-off site. So we do have folks who drive from the south side to Lihui, as well as Lihui members who bring their food scraps to a location and drop it off there. And then we do have a drop-off location in Kilauea. We started these because we knew that there was a demand on the North Shore as well as Central and South Side to use our services. But we do have the intention of handing these off to other folks. So in Kilauea, we are working with a local farm to eventually, hand off these customers and these composters to that farm so then they can eventually be the ones who receive the materials and process it there. So then that way they can kind of take care of the North Shore. Because like I said earlier, it's like we don't envision ourselves doing the whole island or being the ones kind of taking on everything. But we just saw that there was a need and a problem. And so we're just trying to slowly create the solutions until other folks can kind of come on board and we can hand it off to them.
Well, I can say it's really great that you're on the east side because we don't have composting facilities on the east side at this time. I know you're doing a different service with focusing on food waste, but it is really great to have something in that region because that's where the biggest population is.
Yes, that is something that we learned when doing kind of our market research. As a business, we learned that a lot of the population lives on the east side, and a lot of folks rent. And a lot of landlords don't want people composting in their backyard. And so we always suggest they try to do a free composting bin in their backyard if their landlord doesn't allow them to. Maybe, have a discussion, or they could reach out to us and we can offer our service. And so that way it's kind of like win-win. We just want people to figure out a way to compost because we don't want those materials to just go to waste. We spend so much money for that food and those materials to come on island. So many resources, water, labor, land, and everything went into those resources. And so I always think about the ROI as a business owner. What's our return on investment? So if we're spending premium dollars on these foods to come to Kauai, why are we then putting those nutrients and resources into our landfill? We just spent so much extra money to get it here,
which is already too full too. I mean, the landfill is too full. So, you're essentially just spending money to contribute to a problem.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
So let's get a return on our investment that we just bought this good food. Let's get a return by putting those nutrients back into our soil so we can grow more food here.
Well, that's great, and I love that. It's good to see that there's still such a thing as, I guess, nobility in commerce. You're not just in it to make money. It sounds like you're really embodying, wanting to do the right thing, and it's nice to see that you're able to make some money while doing it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're making money, but we all have full time
money. No,
we do have full time jobs. So the nice thing about compost is that, when you manage it, take care of it, and you figure out kind of the recipe of the ingredients, it's kind of like a good bread. You find the right ingredients, you mix it all together, and then you kind of like knead it, and then you let it sit. And then maybe you check on it, and then you knead it, and then you let it sit. So with compost, it's quite similar. We mix all of the right ingredients together, we turn it, we check the temperatures, we can let it sit for a few days, we turn it again, we check the temperatures. So which it allows us to then have our other jobs, which help us pay our bills. So that's the beauty of compost. Compost can take about 6 months to a year, depending on how you're managing it. So some folks who might be doing the backyard composting might find if they don't really check on it or turn it or do anything, it might take a year for the compost to happen. But if they have the time and they're super excited about it and they want to check on the temperature and check on the moisture and turn it, it could take like 6 months, 4 to 6 months to have finished compost ready.
That's great. So I wanted to kind of circle back. Earlier you were talking about, dried yard waste, dried brown media. So like in my yard, the lion's share of the yard waste that I create is grass clippings when I mow the lawn. And obviously those are wet when you first cut them. So to use them as the, carboniferous medium, would I have to put those in a separate pile, let them dry out and turn brown, and then I can add them to my composting bin?
And then there's also such a thing as grass cycling. I don't know if you've heard of that, where you just leave it. I know it's messy, but it adds nitrogen to the soil. It's really good.
You just leave it on the...
You don't bag it up. You just leave
do
it.
that.
It's great for your grass.
Every couple of times when I mow, I leave it. But it does end up getting tracked in the house and stuff. I bag it up probably 9 out of 10 times, I'd say.
So we recommend, that you put it in a pile, or if you want to contain the pile with like some chicken wire, just to let it dry out so that it's a good source of carbon.
Yeah, we actually have, so we do have a tumbler composter at our house, which is what we use for our food scraps. Just because it's off the ground, the cats and the dogs don't get into it. It's a closed system. But then we do have 2 of the black Vader bins from the county. I got one and then my partner got one. So we have 2, and that's where we put a lot of our grass clippings and things like that. So we kind of have 2 different systems going depending on what we're putting in them. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I know we've already kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just want to see if there's any maybe any insight we haven't gotten yet. Could you fill us in on what happens to the compost after you pick it up from your customer's house? Like, what's the life cycle of food scraps?
Yeah, so since we started in 2020, our process has changed many times, and that's because we've been growing, we've been learning, we're trying to follow rules, and so we started with worms. Our piles started getting bigger, they were getting too hot, the worms didn't like it, so we had to figure out a new system. We were doing kind of this Johnson-Su bioreactor system, which is it's on like a pallet with chicken wire, and then there's these they use PVC pipes with holes in it. We didn't want to use PVC pipes because we were working on a shoestring budget, as well as we don't like if we can reduce, we don't like plastic. So if we can reduce, we love plastic, but if we can reduce plastic, we try our best. So we actually got bamboo, thick wide diameter bamboo, and we drilled holes in that. And so we had chicken wire. We would put all the food scraps and grass clippings and leaves in. We'd have the bamboo in there, and those were kind of like chimneys. For the hot air to kind of escape, as well as get air into the center of the pile. So we had that system going for a while, and now we're at a little bit of a medium scale. We do have a piece of equipment that we were able to get through a grant from the county to help us scale up so we can help more folks compost. And now we have these larger piles that are called windrows, and they're just a bigger pile, and they're, rather than them being kind of like this mountain or mound, they're just a little more stretched out, so they're just a little more elongated. And so we have those now. So going back to what happens with your food scraps, now our current system is we have a bucket, a 5-gallon bucket. This is our 5-gallon bucket with a nice flexi lid. And so if I were to give this to you, Max, you'd bring it home. You would make your dinner, your soup or something, your carrot tops, your onion peels, your potato skins or whatever. You would put them in this bucket. And then on Mondays, which is our current pickup day now, you would put this outside next to your mailbox. And then we have a lovely driver who comes by, picks up your bucket, puts it in the truck, and then they will leave you a clean bucket. So you don't have to worry about the cleaning. We've taken care of everything. And then our driver brings the buckets all back to our composting facility. We have a great team of folks and friends and volunteers who dump the buckets, which you can see, like Allison was saying, in our TikTok videos. You can see the fun we have with that. We dump all of the scraps into our big windrow piles that we open up. We make jokes about what people are throwing away. We talk trash about some people. We're like, this person just threw away a whole pineapple. Like, what are they thinking? This person just threw away perfectly good sweet potatoes. I have definitely taken out squash that is perfectly good, cut those open, and I'm like, this is totally edible. Or taken the seeds out of a lot of these things and then planted them. So we dump those scraps into our windrow pile. We take wood chips, pile that on, 3-to-1 ratio, like Allison was saying, and then we mix it all up with our machine. And then we cover it with a tarp, so that way there's no rainwater that comes onto it, so there's no runoff, and any of the leachate we have is actually caught in a trough. And then each week we add more and more food scraps. After 1 month, we move the pile over, and that is what we call our monitoring pile. So I believe this is EPA as well as state of Hawaii rules and regulations. We need to make sure that pile heats up to reduce pathogens. So that pile then needs to reach at least 131 degrees Fahrenheit to kill Salmonella, E. coli, any pathogens, as well as any seeds. All of those plant seeds that I was just talking about that I pull out, those should be killed off in that temperature range as well.
And theoretically, just between the sunlight hitting the pile and the chemical reaction of decomposition, that heat should occur naturally, right? You're not like walking around blasting the windrows with flamethrowers or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, that is natural. Yes. I mean, when we do put the tarp on and when we do put the wood chips on top, it is kind of like an insulation.
Like
yeah, that keeps the heat in. But yeah, when you start composting at a little bit of a larger scale, they usually say when you hit about a 3x3x3, like a cubic yard of material, the temperatures can get hot enough. So if you're not getting those temperatures, it might be because your pile might actually be too small. Yeah, so usually you want to get at least 3x3x3 feet. And so, yeah, that's the microbes, actually. There's a big party of microbes, the growing population, and they start heating the pile up.
Yeah, and just like us, microbes have body heat. And if they get contained in a tight environment, then their body heat also gets contained and it gets hot in there.
Yep.
And I've been to composting facilities, even at our own facilities, seen the piles steaming.
Yeah.
Your piles steam.
They do steam, yep. And we've got, we used to use manual probes. They're just like really long temperature, or really long like thermometers, or like what you would put maybe in a turkey. But we actually have this like fancier Wi-Fi, Bluetooth temperature probe sensor now that we stick in a couple of different points, and then I can actually look at my phone and see the temperature. Awesome. And we can track it, like every day. It takes, I think, the temperature every 2 hours, and I can see the temperatures rise and fall through the different times of the day. And then when we turn the pile, the temperature will drop a little bit because we just put some more air into there, and then the temperature will rise. So it's kind of cool. I love science. I'm a science nerd. So I love watching, we love looking at the temperature rise and fall.
Well, you fit right in on this show because
nerdy.
We're science nerds, I think, too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what happens with the scraps. And then after 6 to 9 months, after it's reached the temperature that it needs to reach, that we know that the pathogens have been killed off, we kind of put the pile to the side, we cover it, we turn it periodically, and it's entering the maturing or curing phase. And that's just where it sits. So I do have to remind folks who are composting in their backyard, like, hey, compost takes time. Nature takes time. We have to do it as well with our piles. We do have to just let it sit for a little bit to just let the microbes do their thing.
Awesome. And then so after it sits for a while, 6 to 9 months, then you get usable compost, right?
Well, you screen it first, right?
We do screen, yep. So because we do deal or handle post-consumer food scraps, which means it's been, someone's maybe eaten it or cooked with it already, and it comes from residential households. There are sometimes contaminants, like I said earlier.
Like vegetable peelers.
Vegetable peelers, oven mitts, spoons. So we do sift it, as well as we like to sift to get out some of the chunkier wood chips that we have in there. And we put those wood chips back into the composting pile so then they can complete their cycle. Because we really I brought a sample and maybe we'll look at it, maybe not. But
definitely would love
I'll
to
show,
look at it.
we like to, we like this really fine, black gold crumbly material that you can easily mix in with your soil or potting soil for your plants.
Yeah, well, let's take a look since we have it here.
Okay. We're trying to figure out our new packaging.
Ooh, that is pretty.
So we sifted, but we're trying different products. So this is a great product that we have right now. It's our staple for mixing in. It's great for seed starting. And we're trying out different blends.
And then just so people know, compost isn't soil. It's an amendment for soil, right? It's something you add to it. You don't just put that in a pot and expect to. It has too much, right? I don't know. You tell me.
So we've definitely had people who have planted directly into just compost, and I kind of just let them know it's I don't want to say it's a waste of money, but you are paying a little
stuff,
right. You're paying a little bit more for compost because it is a soil amendment, something that's going to boost your soil and add extra nutrients to it, add more organic matter to it. So I would suggest mixing it.
Maybe a third compost to third soil.
Yeah, I would say that would be good. Yep. And you can top dress, so you can add compost on top of the soil throughout the season to just add more nutrients to the soil. So we do have people who have planted directly into bags of our compost, and they're like, wow, my bok choy is huge. Wow, my tomatoes are huge. And I'm like, and it's but you probably didn't need to do it in all just compost. You could have spread the wealth and spread the love, to your other plants too. But
awesome. That's
cool.
A great product.
And it's very, not gross. I mean, just from the outside, it just looks like soil.
I love showing people the final product when we're at the farmer's market. I love being having a jar of your food scraps and then showing what it looks like at the end.
That's a really cool demo.
It blows people's minds to see those food scraps then turned into this.
Here's all your bread heels and
exactly.
onion ends and carrot tops, and here's this usable.
And people really love compost. I mean, it's very coveted.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah,
that you have
and it's
that
expensive
product
to
at the
buy.
end. Yeah.
So making it yourself is
right. And on the topic of CRB, coconut rhinoceros beetle, it's we want to promote folks buying compost locally, not just because we have a business, but we think it's very important to reduce the spread of invasive species. A lot of our compost at Home Depot is shipped over from Oahu, and that is, as they call it, not my words, an infested island with coconut rhinoceros beetle. And so I think there was a moratorium, or there was a stop to compost being shipped over here. From Oahu, so we might notice the shelves being a little more empty at Home Depot or Ace for compost, and so we highly recommend residents of Kauai to compost in their own backyard, because then they know where those materials are coming from. They can inspect their compost to make sure there's no CRB larvae, or buy from local farmers or local facilities on island and support those folks, because that way we're not shipping things over from Oahu, or even buy from a farm that's in your neighborhood, because then at least where it came from, and you're not moving it from a different region of the island to your backyard.
Yeah. And so on that topic, let's say I'm composting in my backyard, And I mean, obviously, I can, and I should monitor my pile to make sure it's not infested with coconut rhinoceros beetles. But how do I? What are some ways I can prevent that from happening in the first place, rather than noticing it happen and reacting as it happens?
Yeah, so one of the methods or strategies that we have learned from the Kauai Invasive Species Committee is actually heating up heating up the material, which is what we do. We make sure it hits at 131 degrees Fahrenheit to meet regulations, but at the same time, it does kill the coconut rhinoceros beetle larva. There is caution, though. There should be caution because the larva can move to cooler parts of the pile. So you do want to make sure you're turning it so you can visually inspect, as well as ensure that all of the material is getting to the core or to those areas that are reaching that temperature. Sometimes on the fringe or the outside of the piles, it might not be as hot. Allison may have some more to speak about some methods.
I don't, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you do when you find the larva? Like, how do you kill it? Like, what do you do to it?
Yeah, so we haven't found any yet. We've had a lot of folks reach out to us. We've gone to workshops. We've been in touch with the Invasive Species Committee to make sure that we're up to date. We do have nets, gill nets that we put over our feedstocks, our wood chips, to ensure that if any beetles were to get in, they can't get out. We get this size I think it's like 1 inch, so that way they get kind of stuck in the gill net, so that we can visually see, or they can't necessarily get in. So that's our way of prevention. But if we were to find one, we would definitely call the Kauai Invasive Species Committee. Their number, something pest, 1-800-PEST.
Yeah,
sure.
we'll.
Yeah, we should definitely put that
It'll be in the
information.
description
there,
or
yeah.
on the screen, or
And a link to their
what have you.
website too.
Yes,
so
yes. I would definitely contact them to let them know there are traps around the island, so they are monitoring it. But I would say put it in a container. But I will let folks know to definitely check out KISC's website or social media, because there is a look-alike larva. So it is a Chinese rose beetle, I believe. And I've found those in my compost bin, in my Darth Vader bin, actually. And I kind of freaked out. And then I was like, okay, I got to look this up. And they do curl a little bit differently. They look a little different, but they are these fat white grubs. So I would definitely say if folks find them, put them in a jar and then check out KISC's website or call them, and then get more information that way to ensure that it is a CRB larva, because there is a lookalike.
Great. All right. Well, that's all great information. One more fun question. If Compost Kauaʻi had a mascot, do you have a mascot, by the way?
We kind of do.
Okay. So, yeah, tell us about the mascot you kind of have. And then if you were going to adopt an official mascot, maybe tell us a little bit about what that might look like, something to put on your logo or et cetera.
So our informal mascot is our dog Taco.
Oh, perfect.
Taco with a K, Tako. You may see her in some of the videos online. She's been around since the very beginning, helping watch the piles and make sure that there's no rats coming into it. She makes sure that, she keeps guard. So Taco is kind of our informal mascot. She loves digging in the compost. She loves when we pull. She gets very excited when we pull the tarps off, because she knows she's gonna get to run around and she gets to play in the compost and yeah. So she's kind of our informal mascot, and so we've talked about maybe putting her on T-shirts and things like that.
Definitely should. Yeah.
Find her in the videos.
But as a formal mascot, I'm not sure what we would make it. We should have a contest or something and see if people could help us. But I have thought about it, when we do educational booths and setups, to get one of those big foam things that someone could stand in once we figure out what our mascot is. Yeah. It could be a worm, but we don't really use worms anymore, so I don't know if it would apply.
I'll start thinking about that, because I'm a huge mascot fan. In fact, when I was in high school, I was a mascot for our high school. Yes, I was a tiger. And it was so fun. I just love mascots.
I was in the marching
I
band actually,
danced,
so
yeah.
I was friends with the mascot.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
That's
So I'll start thinking about that. Maybe I'll wear the mascot costume every now and then for you guys.
We do. I would say like we use a lot of tarps. So I don't know if the tarp would be a mascot. What we use shovels. There should be a shovel mascot. I'm not sure. I'm trying to like think of these.
Okay, so I can't take full credit for this one, but I had ChatGPT help me come up with some ideas. And my favorite one that it came up with was a banana peel with sunglasses. What do you think about that?
Yeah, like a food scrap. You know,
Right.
People would relate
A
to
banana
a food
peel. That would
scrap.
be. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'd have to give it a name.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That would be the next level. After we figure out the mascot, then we need to have a name, obviously.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay.
We're
we'll
going to
be
do this.
thinking about this.
Yeah.
You know, I bet she's gone home already, but Huike actually we have a dog that's our unofficial mascot.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh,
So,
really? I think I've seen it in
I
some
saw
of
her
your
in the-
videos.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw her.
yeah, she's a social media star nowadays.
Yes. Yes, I've seen that.
But yeah, she's the boss's dog, but everybody loves her, so she's just kind of everyone's dog now.
It's always nice to have a dog at work.
Yeah,
Yes.
it totally. Yeah,
I
she's
agree.
everyone's emotional support animal.
Yes, exactly. We need that. We need that.
All right, so we'll wrap up on a couple of poignant, serious questions. So, what would you say is your biggest challenge in running Compost Kauaʻi?
There's a lot of challenges. Our biggest challenge, I think, would be balance. The word balance. Balancing our full-time jobs with composting and running a business. I think if anyone runs a business, they know the amount of work that goes into it, and it is like your baby. So you dream about it, you wake up, and it's the first thing you think about. You use all your days off to really work on your business. So the balance of like our full-time job and this business has been challenging at times. Thankfully, I have two great business partners, Jesse and Nikolai, who help me out a lot. They help with the balance. They can take a little bit of the responsibilities off of my shoulders at times. I can take a little bit off of theirs. We each have our strengths. They're really good at building things. I'm maybe better at computer things, as well as balancing our bank account. So when it comes to our expenses and our income, it can be a challenge to make those balance out and make sense at times, because we are offering a non-essential service when it comes to composting. The county already provides a pickup service for waste. It does go to the landfill, but it's a lot cheaper for folks who are already buying into that and paying for that to then just landfill their food scraps. So it is a big challenge to change folks' habits, to separate their food waste, to buy into our program. So I would say that's the biggest challenge, but we want to continue to pave the way to show folks, to help with the habit change and to allow people to have an alternative. Because there are folks who do want there to be an alternative, and they do want to support us and pay for our service. So we appreciate all of our customers who have been with us from the beginning for the last 5 years, who religiously put their bucket out, and we return compost to them. That's we return free compost to our curbside members, and that's like our thank you to them, as well as because we want them to use it to put in their garden. So yeah, it's really balance has been the biggest challenge of so many things going on, but like I said, more people are coming on board as customers, as well as other folks on the North Shore and the farms and other community members are really wanting to replicate what we're doing. And so hopefully then it'll spread out, and it'll be a little bit easier to balance, so we're not the only ones doing this, and we can help those who aren't able to compost in their backyard.
Awesome. Yeah, many hands make light work.
Yes, yes.
Great. That's great. It's good stuff. Great answer. So, last question. If you could get everybody on Kauai to start composting tomorrow, what is the first thing you think would change in our lives?
people's eating habits. And I say that because that is the testimony and the response I get back from a lot of our customers, that when they started composting, they realized first they were not eating very healthy. Some folks are like, I realized I was throwing away a lot of like really bad leftovers or takeout foods, or they were like, I don't really have a lot of food scraps. Why don't I have a lot of food scraps? Oh, because it's like I'm not really eating a lot of actual food, so people are realizing like they weren't eating very healthy. And then two, I would say people started realizing, wow, I'm throwing a lot of money away, or I'm throwing a lot of food scraps away. So then they actually like, it's a double-edged sword? It's this kind of funny, ironic thing where people start noticing, wow, I'm wasting a lot of food. They change their eating habits, they change their buying habits and their shopping, and they find ways to make a list before they go grocery shopping to just buy what they need, or they make sure they do first in, first out. They eat that thing that was in the back of their fridge first, and then rotate things. And then they'll email us and be like, oh, I don't have much food scraps anymore. I don't really need your service because I actually figured out how to not waste as much food. And we're like, yay, good job. We want that. We want people to not waste as much food. But, if you are eating a bunch of lilacois, you can't necessarily eat those peels. So when people are juicing and things like that, they do have a lot of peels. So there is we're still important to those people in their lives. But yeah, I would say that if everyone started composting or diverting their food waste and that became island-wide, I think it would definitely change people's eating habits and diets. They would just have a better look at the foods that they're consuming or not consuming.
You're right. It's about looking at it and putting it in a separate place other than the trash can where nobody's looking at that.
Right.
Exactly. And, Mel Raposo is a customer of ours, and he had this great testimony he gave to the county council, and we appreciate him so much for it because he said exactly, like he gave this testimony where he said he used to have 2 or 3 trash bags of trash every week, and then since he started using our service, he started seeing, oh my gosh, me and my wife are throwing away this much food waste, and now we only have 1 bag of trash. So he realized like, oh, those extra bags of trash were just because there was food waste in it, extras, So it made him realize. And so that's the testimony I've received from our customers, is just their diet changes, and they see it.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, that just about wraps up the interview portion of today's episode. But for the first time ever on Talkin Trash, we've got a cutaway segment. So a little while ago, I had a chance to go take a tour of the Kekaha landfill with Rebecca and with some of her colleagues at Compost Kauaʻi, as well as some of our friends from KKCR, Kauai's community radio station. And our tour guide was Andy Boyd. So, it was kind of the whole Talkin Trash crew was there. I brought along a camera and I taped the tour. It was very informative and it was very entertaining, which always helps me remember. So let's take a look.
So today we're meeting with Compost Kauaʻi and some folks that have worked with them on a grant so that they can do more education about our landfill and our landfill situation here on Kauai, and so that they can do some educational outreach to their members and the wider community at large to let folks know what's going on and how they can help and why it's important. So my name is Andy Boyd. I'm the County of Kauai's recycling coordinator. Just some basic facts about our landfill. We take in about 240 to 50 tons a day at the landfill. And then, so it's a little over 92,000 tons a year. About another 35,000 tons is what we're diverting. It's about 43%. The best way to fix this problem is make sure we're talking to our representatives locally, statewide, and federally to work on programs that are going to deal with the manufacturing side of things. We have extended producer responsibility laws that deal with some of that. Personally, that's always seems to be on a state level. There's no federal EPR legislation, which I think is a mistake, because I think federally, then all these corporations aren't having to do a program for my electronics is different in Texas than it might be in Washington than it is in Maine. So it would be better if it was standardized, and then it would be easier for manufacturers really to do that and participate. I was going to ask, does anybody need any of our recycling guides?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is that a new one?
It is. All right, let's walk up this way a little bit, and that way we can see the working face. A landfill is designed to keep air and water out. So what happens is, instead of having a normal aerated breakdown of materials, you have an anaerobic process. And so the anaerobic process is what generates the methane. And most of the breaking down of materials in the landfill are the organics, because the non-organics generally just kind of stay like they are. I mean, you can go into landfills that are 100 years old and still find readable newspaper.
I was just telling that fun fact. Wow.
So I mean, it's really designed to just leave that stuff in an as-is situation. But I mean, still over time, it still breaks down. You can't avoid it. Water will eventually seep into the landfill. So a landfill, in a certain sense, is like a big coffee filter, and water will percolate down through it. And then at the bottom of this landfill is like a gravel, then a clay, and then a plastic liner. And any of that water that gets into the system is collected in the pond down at the bottom, which you drove by on the way in, which you may not have noticed. It's an evaporation pond. And so all the water is collected that comes onto this site, because we can't let it leave the site, because it probably has some nasties in there. We're still looking for another location for a new landfill. However, the Board of Land and Natural Resources has approved us, the county, to look at building on top of this landfill. What we would do is, basically, you kind of would dig in the side so all that the water is going to be collected internally, and then we would line on top of the old landfill. Well, they're estimating 2.5 to 3 years to max out the existing landfill. There's no portion of this that's inexpensive. So we have a pay-as-you-throw system. Now our garbage system, we don't pay as a residential customer, they aren't paying the true cost of the service, but it is set up so that the larger can costs more than the smaller can. So that's an incentive to try and reduce your waste, in theory. We're looking into more recycling and how to do better with the recycling and capture more of that material, whether it's curbside or some other means. We absolutely, we're working with Jesse with doing we have a compost working group, and so we really want to focus on that.
And he does walk the walk. I mean, I've been running down for a surf, and on the weekend he's down with Tim, Ho'omalo Creek High, doing a beach cleanup on the east side.
Yeah, we got one tomorrow.
Where does our plastic end up eventually when we put it in the plastic recycling bin?
So primarily we recycle the number 1 and the number 2 plastic bottles and jars. Right. Most of that's going to go to either like Indonesia, Malaysia.
And they use it for plastic stuff?
Yeah, basically they chip it up, wash it, and then they pelletize it.
How about our glass?
The glass gets shipped to California, but we're currently working on some. It's kind of a weird situation, but we're trying to figure out ways to use the glass on island.
Sure. That would be
So
fun.
this is trash that we're standing on and then layered with dirt, so it's like a parfait.
Right.
What are like things that you think the average person on this island could do to make it any better?
Well, I mean, from an individual standpoint, it's more, to me, it's just making decisions when you go shopping. Do that. You should make sure it's going to last a long time. Can I recycle it? Or what are the options with this thing once I'm done with it? But it's when if your favorite drink is Coca-Cola, don't buy it in plastic. I mean, even though you can turn it in, plastic, it's recyclable, but it's not infinitely recyclable like metals are, like glass are infinitely recyclable. So plastic gets recycled once, twice tops, and then it's still going to end up here. When we grow up, where does your trash go? Away. So that's what we're taught. We're not taught to think about our consumer habits.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to Ho'ike on YouTube or on your favorite podcatcher, and don't forget to tune in to Channel 54. Watch us on TV as well. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay trashy. Aloha.